The year is 2045. The world watches with bated breath as tensions escalate between two giants, Russia and China. Their shared border, a vast expanse stretching across the Siberian wilderness, becomes a tinderbox. At the heart of the dispute lies a newly discovered resource, vast reserves of rare earth elements vital for technological advancement. Both nations lay claim to the territory, their rhetoric increasingly bellicose. Skirmishes erupt along the border, escalating from minor incursions to full-blown military engagements. Propaganda machines on both sides churn out a steady stream of misinformation, fueling nationalist fervor and demonizing the enemy. The world watches, a silent audience to a tragedy unfolding in slow motion. Diplomatic efforts falter, failing to bridge the chasm of mistrust and ambition. The clock ticks down towards midnight. The world holds its breath. Will cooler heads prevail? Or will the flames of conflict engulf us all? The answer, when it comes, will be written in fire and blood. The shadow of the red sun looms large. It begins with a miscalculation, as so many wars do. A border clash, misconstrued as an act of aggression. A retaliatory strike, disproportionate and reckless. Within hours, the situation spirals out of control. Panic grips both capitals. Fingers hover over buttons that hold the fate of mankind in the balance. And then it happens, the unthinkable. The sky over Siberia erupts in a blinding flash, brighter than 1,000 suns. A mushroom cloud, a harbinger of death, climbs high into the atmosphere, casting a long, dark shadow across the land. The world shudders. The nuclear genie is out of the bottle. The initial strike is just the beginning. Retaliation is swift and merciless. Missiles streak across the sky, each one carrying a payload of unimaginable destruction. Cities are reduced to rubble in the blink of an eye. Millions perish in the initial blasts, incinerated in the searing heat. The living envy the dead. News of the nuclear exchange sends shockwaves across the globe. Financial markets crash. Governments scramble to respond, but their efforts are too little, too late. Fear and panic grip the world. People flee major cities, seeking refuge in rural areas, only to find chaos and despair. Diplomatic channels, already strained, break down completely. Accusations fly back and forth. Blame is a useless commodity in a world on the brink of annihilation. The United Nations, once a beacon of hope, is paralyzed by inaction. The old world order crumbles, consumed by the flames of war. The world watches in horror as the two superpowers engage in a deadly game of nuclear chess. Each move brings the world closer to the abyss. The question is no longer if, but when will the final fatal blow be struck? In the aftermath of the initial strikes, a new horror emerges: nuclear winter. Millions of tons of dust and debris are blasted into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun. Temperatures plummet. Crops fail. Darkness descends upon the land. Radioactive fallout carried by the wind spreads across the globe, contaminating water supplies and poisoning the food chain. Radiation sickness becomes a pandemic, claiming millions more lives. The lucky ones die quickly. The unlucky ones linger, their bodies ravaged by the invisible killer. The natural world, already reeling from the effects of climate change, is pushed to the brink. Forests wither and die. Animals perish by the millions. The delicate balance of nature is shattered, perhaps irrevocably. Section 5. The long collapse. The collapse of civilization is not a sudden event, but a slow, agonizing decline. With global supply chains shattered, food and medicine become scarce. Governments collapse, unable to provide for their citizens. Law and order break down, chaos reigns. Cities, once bustling centers of commerce and culture, become lawless wastelands ruled by gangs and warlords. The strong prey on the weak. Desperation drives people to commit unspeakable acts. The veneer of civilization is stripped away, revealing the darkness that lurks beneath. In the face of such overwhelming catastrophe, hope becomes a dangerous illusion. Survival, not morality, becomes the only imperative. The human spirit, though battered and bruised, refuses to be extinguished. Even in the darkest of times, a flicker of defiance remains. Section 6. Survival of the fittest. As the long, harsh winter sets in, survival becomes a daily struggle. Those who were fortunate enough to have prepared for such a catastrophe find themselves thrust into the role of leaders, their skills and resources essential for the survival of their communities. Underground bunkers, once the domain of conspiracy theorists and doomsday preppers, become havens of relative safety. Seeds, carefully stored away, represent the hope of a future harvest. Knowledge, passed down from generation to generation, becomes more valuable than gold. The bonds of family and community, tested to their limits, prove to be the strongest ties that bind. People band together, sharing what little they have, finding strength in numbers. Acts of kindness, once commonplace, become beacons of hope in a world consumed by darkness. Section 7, From the Ashes. Years turn into a decade. The long, slow process of healing begins. The clouds of nuclear winter gradually dissipate, allowing the sun's rays to once again reach the Earth's surface. Temperatures slowly begin to rise. The natural world, remarkably resilient, begins to recover. Survivors, hardened by hardship, emerge from their shelters, blinking in the unaccustomed sunlight. They look out upon a world forever changed, a world scarred by the folly of their ancestors. The air is still heavy with radiation, a constant reminder of the catastrophe that befell mankind. The task ahead is daunting, to rebuild a shattered world from the ashes of destruction. But amidst the ruins there are signs of hope. The human spirit, though tested, has not been broken. The will to survive, to rebuild, burns brightly in the hearts of those who remain. From the ashes of the old world order, a new one slowly begins to emerge. With the superpowers crippled, regional powers rise to fill the void. Alliances shift, new ideologies take root. The survivors of the nuclear war, forever marked by the experience, are determined to prevent a repeat of the past. They understand, perhaps more than any generation before them, the fragility of peace and the importance of cooperation. The concept of nation-states, once seen as immutable, is challenged. People begin to identify more strongly with their local communities, with their shared humanity. The seeds of a more global, more interconnected world are sown. Despite the best efforts of those who seek to build a better future, the scars of the nuclear war run deep. The ruins of once great cities serve as a constant reminder of the destructive power of human ambition. The genetic legacy of the conflict lives on in elevated rates of cancer and birth defects. The threat of nuclear annihilation, once a distant nightmare, is now a visceral memory. The survivors of the war carry the burden of their knowledge, passing down the cautionary tale to future generations. The shadow of the red sun, though fading, continues to loom large in the collective memory of mankind. The world has been irrevocably changed. The old certainties are gone, replaced by a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life and the importance of safeguarding the planet for future generations. Even as life returns to some semblance of normalcy, the ghost of war continues to haunt the survivors. Nightmares of mushroom clouds and radioactive wastelands plague their sleep. The psychological toll of the conflict is immeasurable. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, becomes a widespread affliction, affecting not only those who directly experience the horrors of war, but also their children and grandchildren. The trauma of the past is passed down through generations, a grim inheritance for a world struggling to rebuild. The world has learned a valuable lesson, but at a terrible cost. The specter of nuclear war, once banished to the realm of science fiction, has become a stark reality, a cautionary tale for all time. The story of the Red Sun is a story of human folly and resilience. It serves as a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of international cooperation. The nuclear genie is out of the bottle, and it will take all of our ingenuity and determination to ensure that it is never unleashed again. The future is unwritten. The choices we make today will determine the fate of our planet and the future of our species. Let us hope that we have learned from the mistakes of the past and that we have the wisdom to choose a different path, a path that leads not to destruction but to a brighter future for all.